I came home unannounced on Christmas Eve and found my daughter shivering outside in 28-degree wife, while inside. Hey there, my name is Ran. I am 33 years old and this is my story. I returned home on a Christmas night without warning. The air was bitingly cold, about 30 degrees and still dropping. My breath formed little clouds as I walked up the path with gifts tucked under one arm. I wanted to surprise them. I wanted to see my daughter's face light up when I came through the front door. But the path was quiet, no laughter and no noise. The house was completely still. The curtains were drawn and a soft light flickered inside. Then I saw her, my little girl, on the porch, shivering without a coat or blanket. Her lips were pale and her words were shaky, too soft for me to hear. Dropped the presents and rushed to her, feeling her icy body in my arms. That's when I heard the sounds from within, soft music, laughter, and the pop of a cork. I put my ear against the door and heard my wife's voice. My wife laughing warmly and full of life. While our child was freezing alone in the night, something inside of me bent and then it broke completely. I kicked the door open and wood splintered under my boot. The warmth of champagne and a fire hit me as I carried my daughter into the room. My wife's glass stopped halfway. To her lips and her eyes widened in shock. I said just 6 words: "You left her out to die." The silence that followed was absolute. Only the fire dared to make a sound. She stuttered, "I didn't." She wanted to play. It was a lie, instant and immediate. My daughter clung to me, half asleep with a fever. I wrapped her tighter in my coat and sat on the couch, watching my wife as she avoided my gaze. She poured herself another glass, her hands trembling, but her voice was steady. "You're overreacting." Overreacting? I thought. A child left outside in freezing air? I stayed silent. Silence has a weight, it pressures, it suffocates, and she felt it. I could see it in the twitch of her jaw and the restless flicker of her eyes toward the fireplace. Her laughter hadn't been for herself. It had been for someone else. Looked around the room. 2 glasses and 2 plates on the table, a faint smell of cologne that was not mine. My chest grew tight. She had left our daughter outside so no one would hear her cry, or knock on the door and interrupt her evening. And suddenly what I smelled was not just carelessness but betrayal, a rot hidden by perfume and champagne. The next morning, I woke before the sun rose. She was sleeping upstairs, tangled in silk sheets. My daughter was beside me, the fever finally gone. I quietly slipped out and started my work. Phone records, strange numbers. A trail that led back to a man I knew only by name, an old friend from college. Her messages were hidden, but not well enough. Desire written in careless words: "Tonight, yours always." I didn't confront her yet. Instead, I built a file, a timeline of hotel receipts, photos and names of restaurants we had never been to, the champagne brand she suddenly liked. Every page I printed was a new brick in the wall. I was building around her a prison of the truth. I watched her in silence, how her smile at me was a little too big and how she asked questions that were too sweet. She tried to hide her guilt with affection. She had no idea. She thought she was still in control, but the audience had already seen behind the curtain. I was waiting for the perfect moment to close it on her forever. The file was thick when I finally slid it across the table. Christmas decorations still hung above us, their glitter now empty. She looked down at it, her eyes narrowing. "What's this?" "Your life," I said. She opened it, and as she read, her skin grew pale and her lips trembled. I watched her fall apart page by page. Her lover's text, hotel check-ins, a receipt for the champagne bought the night our daughter almost froze. She whispered, "You went through my..." I stopped her with a look. "I know everything." Her tears came fast and she said it was a mistake. I didn't mean it. The proof in her hands made her excuses feel like lies. I stayed still, composed. My rage was neatly hidden behind a calm face. She begged and reached across the table. I did not move. It was her turn to be silenced. I picked up my phone and played the recording. Her lover's voice was low and loving, promising her things she had once promised me. She froze, her eyes wide. The sound of her betrayal filled the room like smoke choking her. Then I spoke 6 more words. "She knows what you really are." My daughter had woken up. She stood in the doorway with a blanket around her shoulders, staring at her mother with eyes that already understood too much. My wife then broke and fell into sobs, crawling toward the child she had left. But my daughter stepped back and I let the silence continue. That was my revenge. Not anger, not violence, just truth, cold and sharp, and laid bare before the only person that mattered. Over the next day, I packed slowly. My daughter sat quietly on the bed watching me. My wife begged and promised to change. Her words were like smoke fading before they reached me. By nightfall, I was gone. Driving away with my daughter asleep in the back seat, I stared at the dark road ahead. There was no pity and no sorrow, only clarity. Love does not survive neglect or betrayal. It dies in silence. And that silence was now complete. The last thing I saw of her was the doorway where she had left our child to freeze, and I knew I would never come back. This was another story from Home Exposed. If you felt the pain, the shock, or the truth behind it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because tomorrow's story might just be darker.